A stone tablet sits in a museum vault in Istanbul. Catalog number V, A12772. Most people walk straight past it. But this tablet contains something that has no business existing. A detailed description of structures on the ocean floor, recorded 5,000 years before humans had submarines, sonar, or any means of seeing what lies beneath the surface. It also describes a specific entrance leading to what the Sumerians called the Abzu. Not legend, not allegory. A real location with coordinates, measurements, and architectural details that match formations we only discovered in the last 40 years. Massive stone columns rising from the seabed near the Persian Gulf. Chambers carved into submerged rock. And beings who descended from the sky entered the Abzu and emerged carrying knowledge that transformed human civilization almost overnight. The Sumerians didn't call it magic. They called it technology. They documented it the way engineers document a facility, with precision, measurements, and purpose. What separates this from every ancient alien theory you've heard before is simple. This tablet isn't mythology. It reads like an operational log. And the structures it describes have been found. In 2004, a joint Turkish-American underwater archaeology expedition discovered a formation off the coast of ancient Sumer. Enormous cylindrical structures, perfectly proportioned, made from basalt that doesn't exist naturally anywhere in the region, and their dimensions match the tablet exactly, cubit by cubit. The tablet belongs to what scholars call the Eridu Genesis collection. Eridu was the first city according to Sumerian records. Not the oldest city we've found, the first city, period. Before Eridu, humanity existed in scattered groups with no writing, no agriculture, no civilization. Then the Anunnaki arrived, and within a single generation, everything changed. Most researchers focus on the mythological tablets, gods from the sky, human creation, the flood. But there's a category nobody discusses: technical tablets, inventory records, and VA12772, which documents infrastructure. The kind you'd need if you were establishing a permanent base of operations in a hostile environment, which is exactly what the ocean floor was 5,000 years ago. The tablet describes the Abzu not as a spiritual realm, but as a physical structure with precise dimensions. The entrance, a vertical shaft descending through solid rock into a chamber with 7 levels. First level, water processing. Second, air purification. Third, knowledge storage. Fourth, biological functions. The 5th through 7th are damaged on the tablet, but what survives describes geometric carvings on the walls, stones that produced light without fire, and a central hall where the Anunnaki interfaced with the Me, the foundational principles of civilization. In 1968, a Soviet submarine detected an anomaly in the Persian Gulf. Sonar showed a massive geometric structure on the seabed at 400 meters depth. The coordinates were classified immediately. Buried. Then in 2001, a former naval officer leaked them in an obscure Russian journal. Turkish archaeologists followed those coordinates and found something that shouldn't exist. 7 cylindrical structures arranged in a perfect hexagonal pattern with one in the center. Each roughly 30 meters across, extending 90 meters into the seafloor, constructed from black basalt whose nearest natural source is 800 kilometers away in the Armenian mountains. The cylinders bore clean tool marks, precise cuts and angles that erosion cannot produce. The Turkish government shut down the expedition within 3 weeks, declared the site a military exclusion zone and confiscated everything. The lead archaeologist, Dr. Mehmet Otabasi, gave one interview to a small Turkish newspaper, then went silent. In that interview, he said, "Whatever we found down there proves the Sumerian records are not mythology. They are history." The tablet places the Abzu entrance where two rivers meet the sea, the ancient confluence of the Tigris and Euphrates, emptying into the Persian Gulf. But 5,000 years ago, sea levels were lower. What's underwater today was dry land. Overlay ancient coastline maps against Dr. Otabasi's coordinates, and they align perfectly with where those rivers would have reached the old shoreline. The Sumerians described the Anunnaki as beings who required different atmospheric pressure, different air composition, and protection from what they called the poison sky. Exactly what any extraterrestrial species would need when operating on a planet whose atmosphere they hadn't evolved for. The tablet describes their transport vessel as a skyboat, sealed, built from non-corrosive metal, capable of moving without sails or oars, navigating both air and water. The Sumerians watched these craft descend from the sky, submerge, and disappear, and wrote it down with the same matter-of-fact tone you'd use to describe a bus route. Inside the Abzu, the Anunnaki brought humans not as laborers but as students. Small groups were admitted and taught the sacred me, writing, mathematics, astronomy, agriculture, metallurgy, medicine. When they emerged, they became the first priest-kings of Sumer. The tablet lists them by name, and those names match the Sumerian king list. The king list records the earliest rulers reigning for thousands of years. Scholars call this mythological exaggeration. But what if it isn't? What if those first rulers weren't human? What if the Sumerians were documenting the actual reigns of the Anunnaki themselves, beings with lifespans that dwarfed anything human, before humanity took over governance? The tablet describes the Anunnaki as physically distinct, taller, more powerful, with eyes that reflected light like an animal's, exactly what you'd expect from beings evolved in low-light environments or engineered for a different light spectrum than Earth's surface. In 1976, Zecharia Sitchin published The 12th Planet, arguing the Anunnaki were extraterrestrials from a planet called Nibiru. Academics dismissed him. But here's what the critics never address. Sitchin wasn't the first to notice these patterns. In the 1800s, British archaeologists in Mesopotamia documented the same things: advanced technology, sky beings, underwater structures, and their reports still sit in the British Museum archives, set aside because they contradicted the comfortable assumption that ancient people were primitive and superstitious. The tablet describes the Abzu's construction in engineering language. Built before the Great Flood, designed to survive seismic events, rising seas, and atmospheric shifts. A permanent installation meant to function for thousands of years. 7 seals, not symbolic, but physical, made from what the Sumerians called heaven's metal. A substance that didn't rust, couldn't degrade, and no human tool could breach. Metallurgists today speculate this describes alloys we only recently developed: titanium-aluminum compounds, ceramic matrix composites. Each seal addressed a specific threat: water pressure, seismic force, biological contamination. The final seals are described in language the Sumerians clearly lacked proper words for. Phrases like shields against the invisible flame and defends against sky poison, radiation shielding, atmospheric filtration, protection against hazards. Ancient humans had no framework to name. The interior lighting system. Stones that held the essence of sunlight, glowing without heat, without fuel, without dimming over time. For centuries, scholars read this as poetry. But in 1998, researchers confirmed that crystalline structures can store and emit light through phosphorescence. In 2003, scientists developed materials generating luminescence through piezoelectric conversion, mechanical pressure transformed into light. In a seismically active region, the ocean floor's constant microtremors would power such a system indefinitely. The tablet also documents acoustic stone cutting, the Anunnaki fracturing rock with precise sound frequencies. The Sumerians described it as singing to the stone until it split. We've used ultrasonic cutting technology in medicine and industry since the 1960s. The Sumerians witnessed it 5 millennia earlier and recorded it the only way they could. In 2012, Turkish engineer Gökhan Serdar used the tablet's measurements to build a 3D computational model of the Abzu. The result? A structure more technically sophisticated than anything humans constructed before the 20th century. Pressure locks, redundant filtration, independently sealable chambers, a helical central shaft, and a power source described as drawing energy directly from the Earth. Mainstream archaeologists dismissed it as speculation. 3 years later, an MIT marine geology team surveying the Persian Gulf for hydrothermal vents found something else entirely. A low-frequency electromagnetic field emanating from the exact coordinates of the cylindrical structures. Not geological noise. A repeating pattern, cycling every 18.7 seconds. The signature of an active power system. MIT published the readings and officially attributed them to unknown geological processes. 2 members of that team subsequently resigned their university positions. One told a journalist off the record, "What we detected wasn't natural, and it scared us." The tablet describes the Anunnaki departure not as death, but as deliberate withdrawal. They sealed the Abzu, boarded their sky vessels, and returned to their origin point, but left something behind. The seed of return, a mechanism enabling re-entry when conditions changed, when humanity had evolved sufficiently, when the time was right. The departure is described with striking precision. The vessels rose from the water in formation, 7 craft ascending simultaneously during a total solar eclipse, witnessed by named scribes and priests who recorded every detail. Cylindrical, constructed from heaven's metal, silent except for a deep resonance felt in the chest rather than heard by the ears. Rising vertically, generating spiraling currents, then shooting upward into what the tablet calls the black ocean above. Space. This description appears independently across civilizations that had no contact with each other. The Vedic texts describe Vimanas with identical characteristics. The Egyptian Book of the Dead describes gods departing in vessels traveling through both water and sky. The Mayan Popol Vuh describes celestial craft carrying creators back to their origin. The same event, the same details. Different languages, different continents, no shared communication. Not all the Anunnaki left. A faction stayed, the Watchers, operating from concealed locations, underground facilities, mountain outposts, and according to the tablet, one group sealed inside the Abzu itself with a mandate to maintain the installation until the return. The Book of Enoch describes these Watchers transmitting forbidden knowledge to humans before humanity was ready. The Sumerian tablet doesn't call it forbidden. It calls it sequenced information, released only as humanity crossed specific developmental thresholds. Some watchers broke that protocol, transmitted knowledge prematurely. The tablet frames the resulting flood not as divine punishment, but as deliberate environmental management. A reset triggered because humanity had developed in the wrong directions. The Abzu survived. The seals held. The watchers inside entered suspended animation, not death, but deep physiological dormancy capable of lasting millennia on minimal resources. In 2018, 23andMe published analysis of ancient human DNA and found genetic markers in modern Middle Eastern populations matching no known migration pattern, appearing suddenly in the archaeological record around 5000 BCE, precisely when Sumerian civilization erupted into existence. No explanation was offered, just an anomaly, quietly noted. The tablet states the Anunnaki transmitted the me to humanity not from generosity but from strategy. They needed humans to expand, build, and maintain the planet, because Earth was a long-term project and permanent Anunnaki presence wasn't sustainable. So they engineered humanity as stewards. The tablet calls it the Great Design, and it says, the design continues to unfold. Now the question nobody wants to ask directly: what if they never left? The tablet describes the Abzu as self-sustaining with active life support. MIT detected a functioning energy output from the site. The structure is sealed but operational. If it was built to last thousands of years, why would it be empty? There's a reason the Turkish government ended that expedition in 3 weeks. There's a reason the coordinates are still classified. There's a reason Dr. Otabasi went silent. Because whatever is down there at 400 meters beneath the Persian Gulf challenges everything we believe about human history, human origins, and whether we have ever truly been alone on this planet. The Sumerians didn't write myths. They documented what they observed. And what they observed were beings from the sky who built a facility beneath the ocean, handed humanity the foundations of civilization, and left with a promise to return. Tablet V, A12772 is not a religious text. It's a record, a blueprint, a message still waiting to be fully understood. The tablet ends with a warning. The seals will open when the time is right. And when they do, what's preserved inside will either elevate humanity or destroy it. Because the Abzu doesn't contain only technology. It contains truth about where we came from, what we were built for, and what's waiting when the Anunnaki return.